Hello fellow humans, welcome back to the channel. Today I am excited to share with you a major milestone in our DIY camper van conversion journey, and that is installing the electrical system. As you know, a reliable and efficient electrical system is the lifeblood of any camper conversion. It powers everything from our lights to our fridge, Starlink, electronics, and everything in between. It keeps us comfortable and connected while we're on the road. To be fully transparent and honest with you guys, I have zero experience with electrical systems, and we completed every bit of this installation with the help of Explorist.life. We used their website and their YouTube channel to help us through the entire install. Explorist.life is an absolute goldmine of instructional videos, from basic electrical concepts to complex wiring diagrams. They've got you covered every step of the way. I've spent hours and hours binge watching their content, and it has been an invaluable resource for my project. This is not a sponsored ad by any means. I just endorse Explorist.life just because of the free content they put out, because they help DIYers like us complete their electrical system installs safe and efficiently. In this video, I'll be installing components that I purchased from the Explorist.life website, and I will be using their YouTube videos and diagrams to guide me in every step of the way. Quick disclaimer before we roll the footage: I am not a professional. This is not an instructional video by any means, but rather a glimpse into how we created our electrical system, and more so just a time-lapse version of that. I would suggest to you to seek out professional help and do your research if you intend on DIYing your own camper van and doing your own electrical system. Without further ado, let's roll the footage. Okay guys, let's get this thing started. This is by no means a tutorial on how to do your own electrical system install. This is a brief overview, more so a time lapse of the process that we went through. This was several months in the making, and we leaned heavily on Explorist.life for the YouTube videos and the wiring diagrams. I watched several hours and the same videos over and over again to understand all this stuff. It looks scary, especially since we're doing the unboxing right now. All these wires, components, fuses, everything of the sort. It does look scary, but if I can do it, you definitely can do it too. Another reason why we chose to order our components this way from one particular website was because it's easier for us to try to eliminate the headache of trying to figure out what gauge wire goes with what component and which size fuse goes with what appliance. So those things are some headaches that can easily be eliminated buying kits this way. You can't go wrong, and you're not going to have anything missing once you get to work. And to be honest, once you have these components in your hand and you follow along on the YouTube tutorials, it's almost essentially like a plug and play. Not really, but kind of. All the components match up with the video, and if you just follow along and do your research, you'll be just fine. And here's everything put together after that brief unboxing. Now it's time to get to work. First component that we're going to be installing is the shore power inlet. This is everything you'll need to get started. And of course, the first thing that we're going to be doing is prepping the surface of the van to keep it free from metal shavings as we drill the hole in the van. I'm not entirely sure how the drill bit breaks here, but maybe it was user error. This was the first hole that we drilled into the van with a hole saw, so I don't know, maybe a lesson learned here. Just a quick switch of the drill bit and we are back in action. After the hole was cut, we cleaned up the rough edges with a file, and then we cleaned up all of the little bits of shavings left over, which can cause rust. My lovely assistant Addie decided to join me for the next part of this project, and that is applying some protective enamel on the bare metal that we just cut. Next, we prepped the 30 amp shore powering kit wiring, and as Nate likes to say, we cut, stripped, and crimped the wiring, which is strangely satisfying. Maybe I was an electrician in another life. One thing I really admired was Addie's eagerness to help, even though we felt a little bit in over our heads. Okay. If you look closely on the shore power inlet, you'll see there's a layer of butyl tape that I put on there for some extra weather protection. It's not necessarily needing, as there is a weather strip that comes on that inlet. It's just an extra layer of precaution anytime we drill a hole in the van. And voila, this is our final product. Now we have a 30 amp shore power inlet. And now for our quick cleanup, we're going to prep the van to install some things on top of the roof, like these 4-inch LED lights that we got from Amazon for fairly cheap. They are mostly used for security purposes, which we'll show later. We chose to use these Seaview cable entry glands. They're usually used for marine grade purposes, and so far they haven't leaked yet. To be honest with you guys, we chose not to film too much while we were doing the wiring install. As you can see here, we are just drilling holes into the side of the van just to run our wires through. This took several days, and this is the finished outcome of how we ran the wires. Most of the wiring and cables you see are 14 to 12 gauge wire. And what's not pictured here is the amount of time and effort that we spent sitting at the computer and drawing on notepads, trying to figure out the layout of the van, where each switch is going to go, where the appliances will live, and what size gauge wire needs to go to each appliance. Hence why we leaned on Explorist.life so heavily on those wiring charts. And looking back on this video, I feel a sense of accomplishment, and I'm definitely proud of our hard work. Next on the list, we get ready to install the hotspot antenna. This was quite a simple install. I think we might do a video later down the road on how effective the hotspot works. What I will tell you is for the price, it is a little steep compared to how much use you get out of it. I will say, in short, it does work, and we have used it a couple of times here and there. Next up, we hooked up our 4-inch LED lights, aka our floodlights, for security purposes, and I think they turned out to look pretty sharp.
Okay. Wow.
Puppers always make a video better, especially the sweet ones. Can you sit down? Sit down. Can you shake? There we go. Nice to meet you, Clancy. Nice to meet you. One downside to building a van is a lot of the things you order aren't going to be available in Lowe's or Home Depot, so we had to rely on Amazon for our multi-stranded wire and things of that sort. Unfortunately, I think we played a big role into Jeff Bezos' trip to outer space. And at this stage of the build, we are hooking up those 4-inch LED lights to the power supply and running those through the cable entry gland. My main concern was this junction here that we're hooking up stays waterproof and watertight. And with that being said, I think these heat shrink glands work really well at keeping things watertight. I'm just moving the van because I didn't have an outlet, and if you're curious, I built 80% of this van build right there in that parking lot. Check out our previous videos on how well that's worked out for us. And here we are wrapping up the wiring on top of the van to prep it for running it through the C-View cable entry gland. And at this point in our van build, we have become professionals at drilling and cutting holes into the roof of our van. We just have to remember to measure once and cut twice. The C-View cable entry gland has held strong so far, no leaks whatsoever, and we have a total of 3 of those on top of our roof. No complaints here. And here's a look at the final product. You can't go wrong with some extra silicone as well. I think it turned out pretty nice. Next up, we get into the meat and potatoes of the electrical system. If you missed the video of us building our electrical cabinet, you can find that in the description down below. This is another template from Explorist.life, and it turned out to look incredible. Our batteries are from Battleborn, and we have 4 100 amp hours of batteries. We decided on 400 amp hours just to give us enough battery capacity to stay off grid for at least a week, if not more, depending on the sunlight and how much we run the van. When people ask me what my favorite part of the van build is or was, I usually refer to the electrical system. This was the biggest learning curve of the entire project, and Addie and I learned so much about the electrical components and how to wire things properly, and we had a blast doing it. We got to spend a lot of time in the van doing some things that we really love and things that you could say were a little bit scary. Conquering your fears and believing in yourself and actually following instructions can pay off. Next, we used a little bit of alcohol to wipe down our cables and the battery terminals. I first hand tightened all of the cables together and then went back with my socket wrench to finish it all up. And to the right of the battery bank, you'll see there's an orange box sitting there with some extra space. That is actually enough room to put in 1 or 2 other batteries if we decide to upgrade our electrical system one day down the road. Now that we have our batteries wired up in series, it's time to move on to install the other components, starting with the shunt and the kill switch. The purpose of the shunt is to send a reading to your battery monitor so that you can view the voltage and the state of charge for your batteries. The red kill switch here is essentially just a disconnect for the entire electrical system. Turning it off can disable all the power in case you smell something cooking, if you know what I'm saying. Next we move on to installing the Links distributor, aka a glorified bus bar. This is essentially where all the components come to connect to the entire electrical system, and they are always separated by fuses. And what you're not seeing on camera is me pausing and taking a look at YouTube on my phone and watching Nate go over this tutorial and this install, and me just piecing it together part by part. And here we are prepping the negative and positive wires to be installed completely. The positive wire from the disconnect switch to the fuse and then to the battery system, and also the negative wire from the shunt to the negative terminals on the batteries. It's starting to come together. What we've done since the last time I showed you all this is I've installed the inverter. So this is the 3000 watt multi-plus inverter from Victron. So we have it so our positive run all the way to the positive side of the bus bar with the 400 amp A&L fuse. Our negative side over to the negative side of the bus bar, you'll see it. The middle black wire is for the ground, so that comes up underneath and it mounts right up in here behind the multi-plus. This big wire is the 30 amp shore power coming off so you can charge your van. Bam, the inlet, I haven't wired it yet. So this positive little wire here and that little negative wire there run the smart Bluetooth dongle for the multi-plus. And then it runs to this little Ethernet looking cord up and into the multi-plus. So that's giving you all your readings. You see these wires here. Those are 6 gauge triplex wires, and that runs up, and I've got it connected to the back of this piece of wood and it goes into the back, and then it comes out here to power the AC distribution panel. You have your negative, your neutral, you have your ground, and you have your positive. These are the 12 gauge triplex multi-stranded wires that run up and through the van. I have an outlet going back behind there in case we want to open the door, access the back of the van and need an outlet. An outlet underneath the work table and one for the monitor up here. I've got an outlet facing outside. I have one here for the countertop. I have one back here for the hot water heater. The passenger side and the driver's side have their own daisy chain. So let's go ahead and test this thing out. If we get a red light, this thing's charging, I may poop my pants. I'm gonna go ahead and flip my main breaker on. I'm gonna flip my breaker for the actual outlet on, and then all I'll have to do is hit that disconnect switch and then turn my inverter on. Moment of truth. I've got the fire extinguisher ready to go, just in case. Reset the GFI. We should have power. We've got power. Woohoo! We got power, baby, it's charging. And there you have it, we have power on. I had to hit the reset button on the GFI. Everything should be good. I'm gonna open up my app and see what the batteries are doing right now. Inverting AC 48 watts. And we are charging our little DeWalt battery on our own system. Here we go. It works, we have no fire. And this cool looking gizmo in my hand is the DC distribution panel, which will house all of my blade fuses to provide power to all of the appliances in the van. And this is where we will hook up the DC distribution panel to gain power from, and separated by, of course, another fuse. And here you'll see the final product of how I ran the wires to the distribution panel and hooked them up to the bus bars on the back of the panel. Okay, here's a messy moment of truth. A blade fuse in there, 15 amp fuse, and we have our puck light. This is the main puck light connected to the main positive side of the bus bar there, and the negative side to that bus bar. The switch is going to be here, and so I just kind of rigged up a switch. It's a little rocker switch. This is not going to be the light switch we use. I think I wired this up right. Okay, moment of truth once again. been here for hours trying to figure it out. Okay, let me flip our switch. We got light. We've got power. We got lights. We got lights by our own power supply. That's fucking awesome. Excuse my language. That's fucking awesome. All right, guys, we got a delivery from the one and only Explorist.life. Nate shipped me a little something, but that's sponsorship. I paid for this. Let's open this up and see what we got here. Hey, I'm a sucker for some stickers. Nice, Nate, thank you. Just a little wiring kit. This is a Victron Smart Solar MPPT 100/30 wiring kit. Basically is what I need to get our batteries charged by the solar panels. This will correlate with MPPT charge controller itself. So that will go on our electrical cabinet, and then this will be our wiring harness to power it from the bus bar. On top of the van, we have 4 100-watt solar panels made by Renogy, and we haven't mentioned them because we have a video dedicated to the solar install, so you can check that out in the link through our description below. So we have our charge controller mounted. Here's our ground cord. It's going to go up and through behind these wires, through that hole and up to the ground right here on the multi-plus inverter. So I'll take that bolt off and then bolt this on. Alright guys, we got the MPPT charge controller on. It's updating the software now. We'll come back after we configure everything and hook the rest of it up. The 2 wires that run down from the solar panels, they are going to go inside the isolation or the disconnect switch for the solar panels. I finally got the wires in. I ran out of memory card, but we have the isolator for the solar panels all hooked in. I'm going to do some wire management once I know this stuff works. I'll hop up here and make sure the solar panels look good. At least some sort of wattage off of there. So let's go check it out, turn it on, and hope we don't burn it down. All right, our app is up and ready. Turn our disconnect on. Switch our isolator to on. And then if I click our app, we should be pulling, hey, look at that, 63 watts coming in. Let's go. That's awesome. So it's charging the battery bank now. Really cool. Really cool. So 76 watts coming in on a cloudy day, so we're barely charging the battery bank, but that's pretty neat. We know it works. What I want to do is test the AC side as well. And we'll turn our inverter on. Also, let me just turn a light switch on to see if this light works. Light works. So let me flip my breakers on. So those are hot, so those are good to go. I'm gonna turn everything back off. That is almost the last stage. The last stage is gonna be hooking up our alternator. Lithium ion battery isolation manager is what it's called. So let's talk about this whole panel that I've installed recently. The first, on the upper left hand side, this is our timer switch for the hot water heater. You don't want to leave a hot water heater on because it's going to drain the crap out of your batteries. And then to the right of that, this is the dimmer switch, which you can see dims the lights real nice. Starting with the switch on the right, I wanted it to be the shower light switch, so that when we're getting out of bed, needing to go to the bathroom, etc., we can just flip that switch on, and then that provides us light in the shower. The second one being floodlights. When I turn that switch on, so that is the second switch. The third one being the water pump switch. So when I turn that water pump switch on, I'll do it for just a moment because I don't have water in there. So switch is on. You can hear the water pump come on. The fourth switch is the ball valve switch. So I will have a wire that runs down through the van into the gray water tank, and when I turn that switch on, it's going to power the ball valve. And then the last but not least, it says kitchen with a question mark on it. We do have an extra wire running to the kitchen, so when I click that switch, puck light comes on. Thank you guys for sticking around and watching the video. And if you're planning your own camper van conversion and need top-notch electrical components as well as comprehensive DIY videos, head over to Explorist.life and check them out. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking it and subscribing as it helps our channel grow. Thanks.